Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening on Turning a Moment into a Movement. I am J Love, and I also represent the Justice for Gerard Movement. Gerard is my son who passed away a little over a year ago, but he was wrongfully convicted for a crime he didn't do. Innocent, and he went to prison. And because of that journey with Gerard and meeting so many other people on that journey with Gerard, created this platform called Turning a Moment into a Movement. And we come here on Friday evenings to talk about wrongful convictions. We talk about injustice, but we also offer our platform as a safe space so others can come on and tell their stories. The more you tell your story, the more you take your power back. And so we offer this space for that. So, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Our mission statement here is to bring awareness to the wrongful conviction of Gerard and all the other Gerards and who are wrongfully convicted, over sentenced, mentally ill, and medically frail in our community, to inspire, organize, educate all communities about the need to disrupt systems, policies, and patterns of the criminal legal system that leads to wrongful convictions. And so, with that being said, we're going to bring on Revertia because she's driving, first of all. Hi, Revertia.
Hello there. I am still driving. Um, got off a little later than what I had intended, and just wanted to say happy gratefulness to everyone. And I am so excited, Jay, to have continuing to have conversations like the one today, and like the conversations that we always have, um, that take different spins and show ourselves and others the remedies and the solutions that are out here for people who have come across a wrongful conviction. And it's
Yeah.
so important that we take our time and acknowledge that it does happen,
Mm-hmm.
yes, and then acknowledge that it's going to take collective action to bring a change, a substantial change, to disrupt, like you say, we have to disrupt the system, and we have to disrupt it because it doesn't work. And
Exactly.
what will happen is, as we find the solutions, the system will dissipate into the nothingness that it was in the beginning because it does not serve a purpose. Um, Over sentencing and harsh, cruel treatment is not an answer in any judicial system, and justice is not being served. And I think that's that's most important. So yes, my name is Tia Taylor. I'm coming to you from the Choice Zone, where I help people discover and take charge of their life and their choices, and allow God to do something new inside of them. That's what God is doing with me. And that happens when we face some of the shadows of ourselves and our systems that need to come down. Um, and I tell you, Jay, no matter what we're doing, whether it's Michigan Coalition for Human Rights or G100 Oneness and Wisdom, and definitely here, and a Transform and Love community, no matter where I am, no matter what's going on, educating, empowering, and encourage others to access their best selves.
Mm-hmm.
That's always first and foremost for me. And thank you
Yeah.
so much. I'm really excited to have this conversation, and hopefully I'll be able to be seen in the next 10 minutes.
Right. So I'm going to thank you first off, Revertia. And then I want you to continue to drive safe. And I'm going to go talk to Dwayne while you driving. All right.
All right.
Hi, Dwayne.
Hi. Wow. I got lucky. I just kept trying. I said, man, it's got to, I know I did it before. And I think I know what I did to get to Safari now.
Okay.
Wow.
No worries, Dwayne. I'm just happy that you're here. So introduce yourself because you are one of the reasons why we're here every Friday night.
Yes, Dwayne Brooks. I got out April 25th of this year after serving 35 years for a crime that I didn't do. I was wrongfully convicted in 1988, and the evidence didn't surface that I was innocent until 2021, and it took 2 years after that for me to make it out of prison. So I'm totally exonerated now. I'm in the civil courts and doing my best to live my life to the fullest, whatever I got left.
So Dwayne, just because I mean, I know your frustration with getting on Safari and everything, but however, you here.
Amazing.
So Safari, it's okay because in a few more months, you're gonna be a pro with all of that. But thank you for joining us, Dwayne. I just want people to know, like, when people see someone wrongfully convicted, they can they looking at you. There's no I say this all the time, like it can happen to anybody at any time. Me, you, my son Gerard, attorney Hugo Mack. Um, it can happen to anybody. And
Yes.
so that's why we come on here, not to push, but to educate, for you to open your eyes to see what's happening right in front of your face every day in your community, on your block, in your city, in your state. These things are happening. And when we're talking to people here, Dwayne, you're in New York, Ohio, um, Minneapolis, Minnesota, like all over the United States, we're showing a pattern, and we're showing how this wrongful convictions is really an issue. Actually, it's a state of emergency.
Really is. Yes.
So innocent people should not go to prison for things that they didn't do. And so that's why we're here. Thank you, Dwayne. I see Attorney Mack is here, so I'm going to bring him on. Hi, Attorney Mack.
Much love and respect to everyone. Hey, glad to see Superman with us today. That's good. That's good. He incognito, but hey, brother, your secret is safe with me. So it's all good. Well, thank you, J Love. The power of love and God with you and other panel members, my brothers and sisters in the struggle. Dr. Hugo J. Mack, attorney at law at your service. 46,000 lawyers in the state of Michigan, but I'm the only one that is not parachuted from heaven to be with you today, but came up from hell through the power of God and Jesus Christ to be with you today. And I always pride myself. People, when I get on these shows, they talk about they went to Harvard, graduated in 1969, magna cum laude. Or, they went to Yale, graduated summa cum laude. I'll tell people in a minute. I went to the University of Toledo, graduated in 1979. Thank you, Loudy. So see, so it's a good thing for me. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for me. So I'm proud to be here, J Love. And like I say, I'm probably the only attorney in the state of Michigan, criminal defense specialist. Office hours 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. Monday through Friday. Okay. And from 8, from 8 p.m. to 9 a.m. on Saturday and Sundays, including weekends. See,
right.
J Love, unlike other people, other lawyers, I don't represent people that drive fancy car over bridges. I'm proud to say a lot of my clients live underneath bridges and shanties and boxes, situation where we trying to do something to try to help them. And I'm proud of that. So, proud to be with you. I understand what it means to be wrongfully convicted, to pay a debt you didn't owe. Spent 12 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections, paying a debt I did not owe. but through the grace of God and Jesus Christ, came out and did the impossible. But with God, all things are possible. Regained my law license and practicing law again, and determined to keep fighting for the people that are wrongfully convicted, the people that are overly convicted, the people that have had poverty criminalized against them, the mentally ill, the infirm, and just the uninformed. The biggest victims of all are the uninformed, who simply don't know their rights and never been told their rights. They never had nobody stand up for them with their rights, you see? So, I'm proud to be on this platform. And, a great colleague of mine by the name of Tia Littlejohn once talked about, they will build a case. That's their job, to build a case. And that's what happens a lot of time. These cases are built. It's not just a matter of the evidence says this or that. People have to aggressively go and build a case. The case don't build itself. Brother Dwayne can tell you that. The case don't build itself. These people have to go and build a case. You understand what I'm saying? With assumptions that people are guilty, that people are lying, that people are shiftless, that people have no moral character, or rectitude. See, so that's in reality what happens. So yeah, we got to start deconstructing that building protocol in the first place, and be able to have them say, now, wait a minute. Just because we have some evidence that says this, it doesn't mean that's the be all to end all. But unfortunately, what happens with a lot of our police agencies, which is one reason I ran for prosecutor in Washington County in 2020, is that they take one fact and one assumption and they build on that without looking at anything else. So, I'm certainly glad and honored to be here. So, J Love, now that I've said all that, here we go. If you find yourself on Trouble Boulevard, push, pull, tow, drag that hoopity to Mack Street. And J Love, let me clear up something from the beginning here. The sign does not say free valet parking. The sign says free alley parking. Okay, so you need to understand that. Okay, so once you get to Mack Street, pull up into my virtual underground garage, and when you're there, dial the Freedom Line, 734-239-3118. The Freedom Line, 734-239-3118. The Freedom Line, 734-239-3118. Because J Love, hmaclaw.com is your hookup. hmaclaw.com is your hookup. hmaclaw.com is your hookup. And J Love, along this line, President Kennedy got it twisted. What he should have said was, ask not what your lawyer can do for you. Ask what you can do for a lawyer like you with J Mac. See, that's what the man should have said. That's what he should have said. Because we need to be here supporting each other. Because J Love, the regular public, they've tried the rest. Now, come on with the best. And if you don't want to win, come to my office and just don't come in. And J Love, I want to address the haters out there, J Love. And I respect you, J Love. You're a woman of integrity and character. But all you haters, I know what you're doing. Calling that woman, putting note all on that woman car, send that woman email, want that woman to kick me off the show. Shame on you. Shame on you. See, J Love, these people come to me and they smile in my face all the time, want to take my place. Nothing but the damn backstabbers, J Love. It's a crying shame. It's a crying shame. And J Love, I'm very personal about my situation, J Love. This one guy, I keep getting all these visits when this guy's supposed to be my friend. He keep coming to my house again and again and again and again. I don't know what he said him and my woman got to talk about in private. I don't know. Look, J Love, and look here, Brother Brooks. I don't want to hurt nobody, okay? But I need to stay on the right track. I need them backstabs, take some of them knives out my back, brother. See, that's what I need. That's what I need, J Love. And J Love, I do have a message for all the haters out there. People listening in, trying to call you. The next thing you know, they'll be calling Brother Brooks, soliciting him to get me kicked off the show. See, they be doing all that. See what I'm saying? I'm gonna tell y'all, like my late cousin Bernie said, I ain't scared of none of y'all. See, so it's all good to me, J Love. But J Love, in order to give people some opportunity to write this down, and in order for people to have the opportunity to go ahead on and absorb all this information, if you would allow me just for a few minutes, I and my backup crew to Return of the Mac, I'd like y'all to excuse me while I do the boogaloo. And introducing to some and reintroducing others, our newest Janice, the Janice. And even though in her absence, my co-performer, Reverend Tia, no Return of the Mac would be complete without Batman, Pulp Fiction. Thank you very much. So, J Love,
Yeah.
I'm gonna end up with this, J Love. I'm gonna end up with this. You know, J Love, I know that the pressure is mounting, you know, to kick me off the show, but I can just plead the words of late great Otis Redding, J Love. You know, I've been loving y'all and the movement too long to stop now, J Love. Please don't make me stop now. Don't make me stop now. Okay, please, J Love.
You had to come back.
Okay. So, and then J Love, if all else fails, J Love, if all else fails, me and Morris Day got it right. Ain't nothing worse than rejection, J Love. Rather kick me off the show, I'd feel a little bad if you just slapped my face. So, J Love, I want you to understand all these things, J Love. And so I want you to know when they ask you, J Love, is that lawyer crazy? Or is that an act? It ain't no act. It's who I really am. And so, J Love, I want you to understand this. When it comes right down to it, they say, J Love, does that lawyer really endorse everything he said? You're damn right I do. You're damn right I do. So, J Love, I want you to know we love you. And this endorsement is by Dr. Hugo J. Mack, the one true king of Russia, Scotland, and Lower Harlem. I love you.
Reverend Tia had to leave. Thank you, Attorney Matt.
No, I'm
Thank you.
still here. I just can't. I couldn't turn on my camera, so I've been cracking up on this side.
I'm sure.
I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm
Yeah.
about to pull in.
Okay, Reverend Tia. So, thank you, Attorney Matt.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So tonight we're gonna have on our favorite guest. I'm gonna bring her on right now. Miss Diane, hi.
Hi, Jay, and everybody. Thank you for having me on the show today on behalf of Darrell Ewing and Derrico Searcy and other wrongfully convicted individuals.
So we have a good conversation because they have a hearing coming up, right?
Yes, December 1st, which is next Friday at 1 o'clock. The whole afternoon will be devoted to a hearing. They're retrying them on a crime that they were acquitted of. Well, they weren't acquitted, but their convictions were overturned. And there is really no evidence to bring them back to trial. But the Office of Prosecutor Kim Worthy and her minions have decided that that's what they want to do, because she never admits when she's wrong.
So this is another wrongful conviction of eyewitness misidentification, junk science, jury misconduct, and a confession. Somebody confessed to this crime. So
Yes.
For those who don't know, Miss Diane, could you give us some background about this case?
Okay, the background of the case. Well, Darrell Ewing and Derrico Searcy were convicted in 2010 of the murder of J.B. Watson and assault on people in the car with him in a drive-by shooting. They were not the perpetrators. In fact, the actual perpetrator, what's so unbelievable almost about this case is that when they went to trial, the federal government, the FBI, brought in a witness who testified strongly that another man, Tyree Washington, had been the shooter and the killer in the case, and other people in the car with him, that Darrell Ewing and Derrico Searcy were not involved. And in fact, Christopher Richardson, who was the federal government, brought in a witness themselves because they found out about this in another situation where Tyree Washington and several people were being tried in front of them. And they decided to contact the prosecutor's office here to say that they had the wrong man. And they allowed Christopher Richardson to come in and testify that he knew firsthand from talking to the actual perpetrator and talking to relatives, etc. In fact, Tyree Washington also tried to testify at the trial. of Darrell Ewing and Derrico Searcy. Cam Towns, who was the prosecutor, who's notorious for her bias against young Black men, trying to portray them all as a bunch of gangsters. And she told him, no, we already have who we want. And that's a typical attitude in the prosecutor's office. You know, their attitude is basically, well, they may not have done this crime, but they did some others, so we're going to get them for this one. And that flies in the face of any kind of justice or legal, procedures in the courts. But that's common. And so after what I just read recently, that when the conviction came down in the court, Darrell acted up quite a bit. There was a disruption in the court, and it was no wonder. He knew perfectly well that he and Derrico had nothing to do with the crime, and he was stunned. His family testified that he was at a wake of homegoing for a family member during the time that J.B. Watson was killed. And they, quite a few of his family members. Now, what the courts like to do in the Court of Appeals and going on, they've got this attitude that, well, family members testifying for somebody or writing affidavits, that this is not believable. That's been a bias in the courts for a long time. And it only recently got overturned, basically, in the Michigan Supreme Court in the case of Robin Hammock, where the judge Megan Kavanaugh, Supreme Court Justice Megan Kavanaugh, said, look, you know, when you talk about people doing affidavits and prisoners coming across each other in prison, a lot of times, and that's happened in other cases where individuals have found out while they were in prison, going to the law library, about a crime that they knew the person that was in there did not commit. And sometimes it's been the case, like with Vincent Smothers in the case of Devontae Sanford and Thelonious Searcy, who actually is the brother of Derrico Searcy, that that was a situation where a guy in prison came forward when he found out what was going on with people that had committed the crime he did. And in this case, Tyree Washington, it's just come out recently. What's going on right now is that there's the conviction was overturned back when Judge Michael Hathaway, whose face is up here, ordered a new trial after an evidentiary hearing. That was subsequent to U.S. District Court Judge Denise Page Hood overturning the conviction and saying that it was due to jury misconduct. The jury misconduct was elicited basically by the prosecution, because their attitude was they talked about Darrell and Derrico belonging to a gang called the Hustle Boys and another gang, and they were in a dispute with them, and that's why the killing happened like that. And they portrayed the whole trial like that. They even tried to get a specialist come in. They said she was a specialist on gangs. Turns out most of her evidence, her research was from Facebook and other types of online research, and the jurors adopted. Now, the judge wouldn't let her testify, but the jurors adopted that approach and decided in a total case of juror misconduct that they would go and research the case online by looking up the people on Facebook that were being tried, finding out about gangs and hierarchies and how the person, they believed that Tyree Washington confessed because he was in he was at the bottom of a hierarchy with Darrell Ewing at the top. That's what they decided. One juror came forward and just totally blew all that to smithereens in their evidentiary hearing. She was a very courageous woman. 10 years after the trial, she came forward in the evidentiary hearing, and she was still upset. She had gotten talked into changing her not guilty vote by these other jurors that were researching the case online. And but then she felt really bad about it immediately, and she contacted the defense attorney, and she testified. I covered the evidentiary hearing. It was just stunning to hear her. She was a white woman. I can't recall her name right now, but she was so sincere, and her testimony was just heart-wrenching, really, because she was so distressed about the fact that she had sent people to prison, that her vote had sent people to prison for something they didn't do. And eventually, Michael Hathaway, when the evidentiary hearing took, there were several sessions of it, so it took place over a number of months. But Judge Michael Hathaway, in the end, now, Michael Hathaway, by the way, is not considered the most progressive judge on the bench. But in this case, probably in part because, well, I'm not going to go into the side story on that. But in this case, he decided to render real justice. And what he said was that it was clear because that the one witness had been pressured, and their trial evidence was insufficient to convince the jury beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendants were guilty. Indeed, it was the extraneous information that did so, and it was virtually impossible for the witnesses to see what they saw. And the evidence, the statement against penal interest, he's talking about Tyree Washington's confession, did not make it an ironclad case by any means. But then, of course, Kim Worthy responded to the media, "This is a case where we believe the charges are appropriate based on the facts and evidence that we presented in the first trial. That's why we will be retrying this case." They have no proof, no real evidence. There was never any forensic evidence that directly connected them to the crime. They didn't have the gun. Darrell's mother, Sonia Dotson, has always said that when they came to arrest him at their house, that they didn't even bother. They just went in and snatched up Darrell and didn't even bother to search the house to get any evidence like a gun that was involved. They never brought the murder weapon into the trial. They never analyzed the forensics. You know, it was completely concocted by Cam Towns, who was the assistant prosecutor, and the chief investigative officer was Theophilus Williams. And so those are the bad guys, essentially, the criminals in this case, that actually decided to send two young men to prison for something they did not do. And they knew it. They had to have known it because Christopher Richardson met with them twice, and he testified at the trial that he'd met with them and looked him in the face and told him, "I told you that somebody else did this crime." And you know, it was just incredible that they went forward with that Cam Towns would have gone forward with that under Kim Worthy. And despite the fact that they had, you know, clear and concrete testimony from the man that actually committed the crime. Now, Tyree Washington has confessed. He actually, Darrell, well, let me talk about Darrell for a minute, because Darrell is an astonishing young man. He is now, that's Darrell on the right there. He just turned 35 years old, and he's been in prison for since 2010. So that's almost 14 years now. And he decided, after he was stunned by the verdict in the case and sent to prison, he decided to focus on fighting back, not only for himself, but for other prisoners as well. After he won the verdict from Judge Hathaway, Michael Hathaway, Kim Worthy declared they were still going to go back to trial with the case. Then he's been in the Wayne County Jail, him and Derrico Searcy, for the last several years in terrible conditions. They've had times when they haven't had any heat or water there. The crowding is ridiculous. Darrell took it upon himself. Darrell finished his legal education with the Blackstone Career Institute and is now a certified paralegal. He did that while sitting up in the Wayne County Jail. And so that's why right now he is representing himself, because he said, before he got sent to prison for something he absolutely did not do. And he doesn't want to see a lawyer get up there and not do basically what he knows should be done in terms of his legal education. One of the issues that's really strong in the case is the issue of Brady, the Brady versus Maryland case, where the prosecution hid evidence from the defense that of who the real perpetrator was. Now, part of the evidence was the fact, actually, it just came out recently, and it's cited in what Darrell is talking about, because he gives the presentations. You can listen to some of his presentations on the most recent story I did about a DPS cop seeing the murder, a new witness in the case. And then also he found evidence that the prosecution had a statement from Tyree Washington at the time of the trial in 2010. Not only did they have that, Tyree Washington later was interviewed by Scott Lewis on video and confessed to the crime in great detail. He signed affidavits. And but then, to really stun people, when they started back for their pretrial, after they decided to retry them, it came out in August of 2021, I believe it was, at one of the sessions, that they had concealed a written Mirandized confession that Tyree Washington gave to the Michigan State Police. That was Mirandized. That was something that was, and he said specifically that he knew he could be charged. But he still went ahead. And now this was all going on. They found this out in 2021, and they still continued. The Cam Towns and the prosecutor, Kim Worthy, and the appellate prosecutors insisted that they wanted to still go on with the trial, even though, one second here, even though they knew from that, I mean, he told them in 2010. Then he goes to the Michigan State Police and swears out a confession that was Mirandized. And even with that, they tried to say, well, we didn't know about it. Well, guess what? In Brady cases, now we don't believe that they didn't know about it. But in Brady cases, it's the case that the prosecution is responsible for all evidence not submitted to the defense. And that includes what the police know. Sometimes Kim Worthy tries to get out of these situations by saying, well, it wasn't us. The police just didn't tell us. That doesn't matter. Like in the case of Devontae Sanford, that was that little 14-year-old child that they sent to prison for 4 murders of adults that he did not commit and could not have committed. In fact, it came out when the Michigan State Police investigated that case, and this is what eventually led to his release, that the Detroit Police Department had interviewed witnesses on the day of the crime who said one of them knew Devontae. He lived across the street from where the killing happened, and he actually ended up firing shots at the people as they left the house, who were Vincent Smothers and, I'm sorry. Okay, he ended up firing shots at the people as they left the house, the actual perpetrators. And the other witness was in the house. She had been hurt in the initial gunfire. She was hiding up under her bed with her little son. And Vince Smothers told her that, just be quiet because I don't kill women. And eventually, we're talking about Devontae Sanford's case here. I got to track for a minute. But his was the case that was most notorious. To this day, Kim Worthy will still not admit that Devontae Sanford is innocent. She totally denies it.
I was going to say, this is that case, Devontae, in this case, both have a person who confessed.
Right.
And then that didn't let them, they still had to fight. That confession did not free them.
Exactly. And and still, despite the continuing exposure of the evidence that that Tyree Washington was the actual perpetrator, and all the other evidence that shows, the alibi witnesses, the family members, that was accurate testimony that they gave. That's where Darrell Ewing was at. Derrico Searcy got framed up by the cops placing some shell casings inside his car when they picked him up. And he's a brother of Thelonious Searcy, Sean Searcy, who also, Sean Searcy was convicted also because of a crime that Vincent Smothers was the perpetrator of. So, and Vincent Smothers testified at length in his evidentiary hearing that he had done it. And the judge in that case, who was Judge Kenny, Timothy Kenny, who used to be the chief judge, denied the result, said he refused to act after the evidentiary hearing to dismiss the case. And so what happened after that was that the Court of Appeals ended up, when it was appealed to, the conviction was appealed. Eventually, the Court of Appeals got a hold of the case again, and they just blasted the heck out of Judge Kenny and the other, the assistant prosecutor, who was Patrick Muscat, who was also the assistant prosecutor in Devontae Sanford's case and Kenneth Nixon's case, another one of the exonerees. Now, they've refused to do anything about those assistant prosecutors, even though they clearly have been in league with the police. The Kim Worthy will not look up cases where the police that cause these wrongful convictions of exonerees were involved, will not look for other cases. There's all sorts of men still sitting in prison. Probably Scott Lewis, the private investigator, estimates about 30% of people in prison in Michigan that are actually innocent or didn't do the crime. And they will not. Now, in some other cities, in Chicago, there's been 2 prosecutors that were convicted.
Yeah.
They were at trial. They were charged and convicted because in a case that really notorious case there in Boston, in New York, the prosecutors have done that. They've gone back and got other people released. Kim Worthy refuses to do that.
I think one police officer, and I think this is Illinois, when he had like 80 people. Mm-hmm. They went back through his cases. It was like 80 people who were wrongly convicted that he had set up or whatever he had done. And they that prosecutor went through those cases and those people were released. Mm-hmm. And so you're talking about here in Michigan, where you see a pattern where these same people names are coming up and there's no accountability. No. I want to ask Attorney Mack about something you said in regards to family members giving witness statements and stuff. Why is it that their witness statements don't hold any weight?
Well, just like when somebody confesses to a crime, which is kind of what we're talking about here, there's no standard that says the credibility level that has to be put to a confession, whether it's verbal or written. All right. I mean, because you've got people that walk into police stations and still confessing to the Jimmy Hoffa disappearance. Okay. So that's the line they classically run on people, is that any and everybody can confess or say something and say, well, what's the motivation behind it, what have you. Now, I'm not saying I agree with that unless it's something patently ridiculous, like some of the Jimmy Hoffa kind of stuff. But there is no standard. I mean, they've had alleged victims come in, all right, and say this really didn't happen that way. And they say, well, that's just one aspect of it. And by the way, it's a tandem of the police, of the prosecutor and courts. Because remember now, just because a prosecutor brings a motion, let's say, to a judge to overturn a conviction, the court is not bound by that. The court can say, well, prosecutor can make all the motions you want. I don't feel the evidence is strong enough to overturn a conviction. So part of the problem is not just the prosecutor. Part of the problem is in these political campaigns when people are running for judge, they actually act like they're running for sheriff. Okay? Because there is no allegation that is false. You know, by definition, unfortunately, with them, it cannot be false because it's an allegation. Okay, so that is the problem, and I would remind the corporate body here. Most of these judges are elected. All right, the federal judges are appointed essentially for life, but these state court judges, like the Wayne County Circuit Court, the Court of Appeals, the Michigan Supreme Court, the district courts, these people are elected. So what people tend to forget is all judges are politicians. All of them, okay, even those appointed to the federal bench are politicians because they want to keep that position, and it's a lot harder to get a federal judge out. You know, it's a lot harder, but not impossible. And so that's why J. Love and crew, elections have consequences. Elections have consequences. Donald Trump appointed over 300 district court judges and Court of Appeals judges, okay? Because he had Mitch McConnell, and then people prostitute themselves. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. They prostituted themselves on that one issue. Well, you know, we want to do away with that abortion issue, but sold themselves out. They made a deal with the devil. That's what they did. They made a deal with the devil. And so when Barack Obama had over 200 appointees that he wanted for the federal bench, Mitch McConnell and them held all them people up. He held all them people up. So once again, elections have consequences. And so, to answer your question, without the right person in the prosecutor's office that's going to give real credence to somebody coming in, say, look, you got the wrong person. You know, I got to tell you, I'm the one that shot those 3 guys, man. Unless you got somebody that's really willing to give credence to that, you have the same thing over and over again. They will be summarily dismissed.
And that's pretty much what's going on with this case. Because Kim Worthy, she's saying, let me go back to that. Kim Worthy is saying something told this case where we believe that the charges are appropriate based off of the facts. So she just going by, the jury misconduct because they was Googling. So, and that's another thing when we're talking about Google, do you not think these people are not Googling in court and these going home and Google?
Sure.
Yeah.
What's going to stop people from going home and Google?
And is there anybody on this broadcast that thinks people don't go home and talk to their families and people about these cases? Is there one person who thinks that Helen Johnson from Livonia is not going home and talking to her husband, Larry Johnson, about these cases? It's an insult to human nature, J. Love and crew, unless, of course, you have a jury sequestered where they can't talk. You know what I'm saying? But still, with the advent of cell phones and all that, you're not going to stop somebody from talking if they really want to. No, you're not. And don't count on people being honest and tell you that they talked about it, because they won't.
The situation in this case with the jury was the fact that the prosecution actually, their theory of the crime was that it involved 2 warring gangs, and that's how it got portrayed to the jury, even though they weren't able to have an expert testify about gangs, but they had a false theory. That was not what happened. This killing, according to Tyree Washington, related to a dispute over a woman between himself and one of the other people in the car. Not in the car, I'm sorry. It was in the car where the person was killed. But you know, the prosecution laid the way for the jury to do that, because when they use all these provocative terms, Lillian Diallo, at one point, she was representing Darrell. She said she's seen Cam Towns do this in numerous cases where they just portray young black men in particular, as gangsters and criminals, and they play on the juries to get the verdicts because of that. And, you know, so it's largely the fault of the prosecution in this case, because that's the whole angle they took from the beginning. And they knew from the beginning they didn't have the right people.
They also knew, I do believe they knew, if they plant this kind of information, they plant the gang information, even though the bar was so low when they went and found this supposedly expert. I could have been an expert, or Revertier. We could have, you know, anybody who has a Facebook page, I guess, could have been an expert according to. So experts, the bar is really low, Attorney Matt. And so where they're getting these experts from. So anywho, they planted this information, like, you know, these beefing gangs. And then of course, people gonna go home and talk about it or look for it.
Sure.
But once they create this narrative, once they create the narrative among themselves, nothing else is gonna penetrate their how they're gonna prosecute the case. They've created a narrative, and that's what they're going for. And so that person who confessed kind of mess up the case and the narrative they created. So they, instead of going for justice, they're going for their narrative. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah. And that is something that is criminal conduct on their part. For them to do that, knowing they didn't have the right people, with the attitude that, well, these are just a bunch of gang members. And the whole idea of gangs is like, that's how they tend to portray black young men in groups, period. They think that they're up to no good. And that's the image that gets portrayed to the public. It goes way back in Detroit for a long time. One of the cases I've been covering is Ricky Rimmer. And he's been in prison since 1975. Just before he was convicted, the federal government decided to send funds to cities for specifically, they funded Squad 6 and Squad 7 in the Detroit Police Department. And one of those was to deal with organized crime like gangs. And so the prosecutors in that case decided that Ricky was a gang member and therefore he had committed this crime. But that goes back a long ways. That's the attitude. That's why so many young, or not just young, but black men and women get stereotyped and sent to prison to spend the rest of their lives there. It's a travesty. The people that sent them there should be spending their lives in prison.
Right.
What happened to me? They did the same thing back in 1988. They painted a picture that, you know, I was some type of gang. Never said what kind of gang it was, but that I was fighting over drugs, and just told. And once the jury hears that, they can't unhear it. You know, that's in their minds, and it was all total lies. Never put on anybody to say that, you know, I did this or I did that, or I was in a gang, or I was into drugs or anything. Just said it to the jury, and that was enough. So this is what they do. And they've been, like you said, they've been doing it for a long time, and they're not going to stop. You know, if they can, judge will allow them to say these things about a person without having any evidence to that, they'll keep on doing it. And they've been doing it a long time. They did it to me in 1988, and painted that picture in the jury's mind that I was a bad character, even though it was, you know, quite to the contrary. You know, I was a working man, young man, and I wasn't into the streets. I'm not from the streets, and this is the pictures that they painted of me. So it's easy for them to do, and unless, you know, there's complete overhaul, they're gonna keep doing it.
Yeah.
And can I just add this, J Love, for a moment? See, one reason I ran for county prosecutor is that the truth of the matter is most people that get seated on a jury want to believe themselves to be fair-minded people, okay? Fair-minded people and good civic citizens, and most of them probably are. I mean, I'm not trying to argue that point, but what I'm saying is, when that jury gets there, the mistake that people make, if you can imagine a painting, okay, a painting, and somebody takes white paint and covers over that painting, okay, not 5 coats, but 1 coat, okay, just 1 coat. When that jury is there, most of those people on that jury believe they are that blank canvas, okay? They really believe that, look, I've read about gangs. I mean, I've seen gang stuff, but you know what? I'm going to be a fair juror. I'm going to put my prejudice away. But you see, the problem is there's a difference between somebody saying putting a prejudice away and eliminating it. Big difference. Big difference. And what I'm saying is, one of the arts of, and I say art in a way, maybe it's a science, of being a prosecutor is scratching that white paint enough, just enough to get to the painting underneath it. Because just like your skin, for example, is the first layer of defense for germ and bacteria, if I can cut you, I'll make a venue for bacteria to get in and infect you. Okay, so that's one reason I want to run for prosecutor, to disrupt that art form of being able to scratch that surface, you know, and instruct prosecutors, no, we're not about scratching the surface. We're about seeking justice. We're about seeking justice. Present the evidence without the little nastiness of making little subtle comments, reminding people, well, my cousin got robbed, you know, or I was watching the news the other night and they had a car chase and they were shooting at the police. And look, this person here's supposed to be shooting or dealing drugs. And oh, hell yeah, they did it. See, believe me, and those of us that have been through it, you know, I see Brother Haynes on here too. You know, those of us that have been through it can tell you that is a fact. That is a fact. And I'm gonna tell you, as a prosecutor, once I'm able to scratch that surface and I can just see a little bit of that painting underneath, oh, you better believe it becomes a retaping of the Oprah show then. It's a retaping of the Oprah show then, because if I have my way, and you know, if I'm in a prosecutorial mode, I'm gonna have you convicted if I'm crooked, not because the evidence of your guilt is there beyond reasonable doubt, but because I done relegated you to an audience in the Oprah show or Jerry Springer or a Carmanos, a Tamron Hall, or whatever that is. Say, yeah, well, that dirty son of a bitch, yeah, he did it, guilty. See, that's the art of the game right there. And that's why you need trained veteran criminal defense attorneys. Don't let them scratch that surface. Every time they scratch it, I was there with a white brush to paint that stuff, to paint that scratch over, and don't let them get into that secondary.
Go ahead, Kevin.
How you doing, Ms. Bukowski?
Hi, Mr. Haynes.
Thank you for your service. Appreciate what you are, all that you are doing and have done, and for your making everybody aware of what's happening. But I hear what everybody is saying on here, but this is the reason why I stress more of us being juries, stop ducking jury duty, being panelists on that jury, because I hear what everybody's saying, but even in Dwayne's case, how do you get convicted? How many blacks was on that jury? You understand what I mean? I mean, yeah, because like this is what I talk about when I see them tearing up the neighborhoods and doing different things, when they think a verdict's supposed to be the same way, but these be some of the same people that duck jury duty. So how can you expect a different outcome? All right, now that's my thing about it. And then, like they tell you, the feds, the state will tell you, and they told you this. Oh, Dwayne, they'll tell you, we know you didn't do it, but we will find a jury that will convict you. And they do it on TV. Or we will find a jury that will convict you. And they do. And it reminds me of being in the feds. When I was in the feds, you wait, you might get it. It might be back then it was like 6 or 7 months before, 6 or 7 months to a year, you get an apple. They got them all in the freezer, all the apples frozen. So they bring out a box of apples and they set the apples there. They put the other lid over so you can pick through the apples. Why? Because by the time they throw out, they're rotten. So what you have to do is you have to pick an apple, and you pull them up and they rotten. But you really want an apple. So you have to pick through these apples, and you try to pick an apple that's not as rotten as the rest of the apples. So you end up picking you a few apples that's not as rotten as the rest of the apples, but still in all, you end up with a rotten apple. And that's what the jury is.
Well, when you come down to it, too, that in Wayne County and most states, I guess, people who have felony convictions are not allowed to be on juries. Now,
True.
Who else knows better what happens in the criminal justice system?
That's right.
But they don't have to because Dwayne, your family, our people know what's going on. So
Sure.
put your butt on the jury duty. So what?
Yeah.
Well, what? They don't have no felons there. They don't need no felons there. We all been through this. And I hear a lot of stars and actors talking about how the first time they was pulled over by a cop, this and that. And they never went on to commit any felony offenses, but they know. So go to the jury. I mean, sit on the jury duty. Same thing for like family members. Again, sit on the jury.
I would
Even
go
with
ahead.
with that, they still have jury selection, and what they do is they weed out all the black people anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But
if it's a
I watched.
if it's
by
a
law they can't do it. By law they can't. They can't. There's authentic Supreme Court cases that has came out in 2015, 16, where they actually started overturning them cases where you didn't have a black jury, or you didn't have no black jurors on there. But what I'm saying is, even then, if you look at your jury pool when they bring them, to find a black person on there is far and few and in between. So if they got 100 white people and they got 10 black people, and let's say they get rid of all 10 black people, it still don't look as biased. You understand what I'm saying? Because it's only 10 of them.
Well, okay.
I'm gonna say, I watched the black people. They was volunteering themselves to leave. Yes, they were. When I went to court with Gerard, they were volunteering themselves. I had a person on there. There was a person there, a man who said, I was wrongly arrested. And he gave some more points about his disdain for that 36th district. And he didn't want to be there. And I'm thinking, like, he is the perfect person to be there. But not only him, there was a few other people who said that they didn't want to be there or whatever, gave a reason. And guess what? They easily let them go. They didn't challenge them. They easily let them go. Easily. And so when you're saying that the ones who do show up, they want to go instead of like, hey, stay, because guess what? This could be you. And that's the part right there. Nobody think that this stuff can happen to them. Like, they think we're talking about bad people or terrible people. Dwayne is not a bad person. Gerard was a beautiful person. He wasn't a bad person. Attorney Matt. We can go on, the list go on and on. Even the young men we're talking about right now, they didn't do it. But when you talk to people, and this is why we come
other people here.
When we talk to people about cases of wrongfully convicted, these are the people that we're talking to in our own communities, in our own neighborhoods, with their biases. When they had to do something, police just don't arrest people. These are that didn't do anything, and we're saying yes, they do. It's a case of a man just sitting there in Burger King eating Wayne County. Diane, I know you probably heard of this case, but he was eating at Burger King, and somebody just came in and, accused him of crime. He was just exonerated 2-3 years ago, but he was at Burger King, had nothing to do with it, but because somebody said he looked like somebody. So I'm just saying, you're right, Kevin. We have to show up to jury duty.
No doubt.
Another thing I might add, the judges. One thing I've been looking at for over 30 years, because I almost did 30 years in the federal system, and I monitor it. Most of these judges start at bottom levels, whether they are lawyers, not that lawyers at bottom level, but you all know what I mean, like clerk of court, magistrate, district court, appeals court, state Supreme Court, or United States Supreme Court, federal, this, that, and other thing. Okay, they're bureaucrats. Y'all got to understand that these are bureaucrats. And what y'all have to start doing is thinking like bureaucrats. They want to make your life miserable, you make their life miserable. This is why C-SPAN is important. When they start reading up the judge's report, y'all have to start writing them up. 28 USC 372. They dropped the C now, so it's B. But what that is when the judge isn't doing his duty and his obligations, what he's supposed to do, you can write them up. And you should write them up. A lot of times they will deny it. They will do a secret investigation because they don't know. They will do a secret investigation. A lot of times they will deny it, but the purpose of that write-up, and then if they deny it and they tell you take it up to the grand counsel, take it up to the grand counsel too, because now they're looking at the appeal court chief judge and they're looking at whoever that judge is you just reported. And what this does, it pulls attention to your case within that judicial system. I'm telling you from sweet experience. Mm-hmm. Okay. And what happens is now when they go for these judgeship things, continual Democrat, Republican, they read them reports, just like Clarence Thomas and them other people. They actually read them reports. If you watch C-SPAN, we don't think like look on what's that Kavanaugh, all the different reports that was written up on him. Who you think wrote them? People just like us, but they're not going to tell you to write them up. And this is what you do. You do that to hinder their growth and their development. So this way they won't get away with doing it with anybody else. But when you do that, they will highlight your case and blacklist it. Whatever you put in that court after that, they will pay special attention to it. Start treat them the same way they treat you. They want to ruin your life, ruin their life right back to them, because they are a bunch of bureaucrats. You already said they're elected officials. Enough people get to write them jokers up, highlighting what they do, and what's going to end up happening when it comes time for them to be reelected. All that stuff is right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of us are caught up and we think that these damn judges is gods. They aren't. They're bureaucrats who want to climb that ladder.
Mm-hmm. Right. What you
say?
Yeah,
and can you guys hear me okay? I got my headphones on.
Yeah.
I was, while Kevin was talking, I was just thinking that how much fear, and you were talking about the linguistics of things and the fear, that the intimidation and fear that is propaganded through the media. And that's why, people shun away. And they are fearful, and they're fearful too because of ignorance, because sometimes they don't want to read up on what's really going on, or what different terms mean, or what precautions do we need to take within the community. But we need to know that recent studies show that wrongful convictions, the number of people convicted of crimes who have been proved innocent, has increased to 70% in the last 5 years. That's an astounding number. And 7.5 times people of color are convicted, 7.5 times more than any other category of person. And and I hate saying it because we still got to put people in categories, which is why we are in this. And it's systemic because it's in the minds, not even written out, but it's written in a person's mind and psyche. So even when they think they're doing something that's supposed to be related to justice, they're not. A lot of times it just seems like they're pushing papers in order to, yes, substantiate their own existence and substantiate the case that they're trying to build. And yes, again, like I always say with Attorney Mack, they're here to build a case. So they're not here to seek justice. They're here to build the case. And so when we know this, even as African Americans, people of color, don't show up in the courtroom or as a juror, and you already are afraid of people of color. You're afraid of yourself. If you don't like yourself, you think you're already guilty. Sad to say, sad to admit that, but many people are already born believing they're already guilty because society and their parents and generations have told them that. Unless we decide to change the narrative. Now, it stops when we stop it. But some people are going to court and you're just as bad as the judges. And I get, I have people that I love in my family, and it's a conflict to this day. Because when you're around me, if you start trying to act like, you're other than human, you're other than a person filled with compassion, you're not a part of humanity at all, and you start talking it, and I'm gonna get in your face about it. I mean, if you bring it up, then obviously you want to learn. You want to learn something new. And 9 times out of 10 is because you don't like yourself.
Yeah, well, also, Rabbitier, I think people are so disconnected, right? So if it's not happening to them or somebody they love personally, they feel like they're like so far away from it. It doesn't have anything to do with them. And that's how you see, well, I'm not going to jury duty, or I'm not doing this, or whatever, because people, and so we have to get people to understand, or people need to understand that you're more connected than you think, you really think, because
they don't want to be connected,
right?
They don't
because
want
these
to,
behaviors that they're getting away with, right? They're getting away with it on the least people, and something's gonna come up one day, and they're so used to it. I mean, Miss Diane been reporting about these people in this county for what, over 20 years. So now they have a pattern of things that they behaviors that they do because they haven't had any accountability. I mean, they was under oversight, Detroit police, for what, for a minute, but I mean, still, what did that do? I mean, they still doing stuff right today. But so you have these behaviors because everybody think they're so disconnected until it happens to them. Now it has happened to you, but we're trying to be proactive. Like, we're bringing this stuff so you can understand that these things happen. When you said, Miss Diane, that the reporter was saying there's like 30% of the people in Michigan are wrongly convicted. And if it's like 35,000 people in prison in Michigan, we're talking about 10,000 people. Over 10,000 people are in prison in Michigan right now wrongly. That's not a small number. That's a lot of people.
So in Wayne County, actually, what Scott Lewis estimated when he talked with me was that during the period of the 90s, when the jailhouse snitches were operating at the behest of the Detroit police, that he believes 80% of the people that were convicted during that period are likely innocent. That was a whole scheme set up by the police in conjunction with the prosecutor's office to recruit people in prison, in the jail, and give them all sorts of privileges, including reducing their sentences, all of that. And that is responsible for very many convictions. Not only here, I found out later across the country, that's been a common practice.
Of these jailhouse snitches. It's like it's embedded in the culture of police and these same things. That's why we see these same stories all over the country, New York, North Carolina, you know, everywhere, of the same type of behavior, because it's embedded, it's part of the culture. Just like we're going to talk about the Booty Boys.
Yeah.
The Booty Boys, Miss Diane, let's tell us about them, because we talked about this on a different level, but I'm going to let you go ahead, Miss Diane. I'm going to put that picture up.
Yeah. Well, I just discovered, this is Michael Parrish, who's on the left, and that is Michael Osmond. These two officers, and by the way, Michael Parrish, the reason I just put this story up, I found out from an article in the Detroit News, he is now Detroit Police Commander. Michael Osmond was promoted to sergeant. I don't know what he is now. But these two officers were subjects of a story I did, of stories, multiple stories, after interviewing numerous youth on the, not just youth, but Black men on the Southwest side during around 2006, in and around 2006, that whole period. They were going around, and the men involved in this sued. They have all sorts of testimony that was given in great detail. They testified in front of the Detroit City Council. The whole situation was exposed in the media at the time. I kind of broke the story in the Michigan Citizen when I was reporting for it, because one of the workers at the Michigan Citizen, Wyman Mitchell, had been in contact with people on the Southwest side there that were telling him that this was endemic. And what was endemic was that these two officers, if you can even call them that, if you can even call them human beings, were going around and terrorizing Blacks on the Southwest side. They would stop them for a pretext, like not having a seatbelt on, get them out. They're convinced that they've got drugs someplace. So they decide not only to search their car, they decide to do actual inspections physically in the behind, and also fondle. It was abuse in terms of fondling them on their genitals. That was all put down in writing in court by the victims. One of them, Byron Ogletree, his case came to light when people during his arrest by these two officers, people in the community there just basically rose up. They practically rioted because they knew what was going on. And the young people, the people that I talked to, a lot of them didn't realize that was absolutely illegal, and it was rape, basically, when you come down to it, because it was under force. And, you know, if you have that video of the man from, where is that, Illinois? Yeah. I think that is, he gives some really graphic descriptions there. It's gone on. Now, what happened with Osmond and Parrish is that despite all the publicity about that, they eventually ended up not being charged by the Detroit police, by the Kim Worthy, by the federal government, none of them. But now it's gotten endemic all over the country. And this is what
play this video.
Have decided to engage in conduct that is troubling, searching individuals, doing cavity searches, stripping people on the side of the road. Let me first take you to this video in Aurora.
Aurora Hill Police Gang Unit harass and sexual assault men digging up his but looking for drugs.
Oh my
one black officer and all of them white. Y'all fucking with black people. You a sellout, black dude.
And make sure y'all get his number, bro.
One black dude and all white officer. You a sellout.
There's significant background that must be shared here. Let me put up the picture of the witness who contacted Indisputable and provided the footage. Ronald Cooper, all right? Indisputable received exclusive video footage from Aurora, Illinois resident, Mr. Cooper, showing the Aurora police illegally performing a body cavity search on an African-American man. Now, some of you may say, well, there must have been a reason for a body cavity search. Or some of you will say, we don't know what happened before that. Now, remember, residents have been complaining about this for a very long time in Aurora. It is not legal, and I'm going to show you how. That action you just saw was against statute of the state. Cooper says he started filming Aurora police after they performed a body cavity search on him in 2020. They did the same to him a few years ago. Researching online, he says the practice has historical precedent. They used to call it buck breaking, when slaveholders or white men publicly humiliate black men by sexually assaulting them in public. I've never seen any white people with officers' hands up there. This only happens to the black community and the Mexican community. Direct quote from Mr. Cooper. In this complaint shared with Indisputable, let's put that up. In this complaint, Cooper says he witnessed the officers violate the suspect's right. He made an official complaint. Cooper's complaint read in part, when I observed Officer Hennings move his hands up his anal cavity and personal private parts, I heard the young man exclaim, "Why are you touching me right there?" The other officers continued to hold him while Officer Hennings molested this young man. Now, I'm going to take you to the law. This happened in Illinois. What does the law say? Let's bring it up. Section 103-1 writes on arrest. No search. Let me say that again. No search of any body cavity other than the mouth shall be conducted without duly executed search warrant. Any warrant authorizing a body cavity search shall specify that the search must be performed under sanitary conditions and conducted either by or under the supervision of a licensed physician to practice medicine in all of its branches in the state. I got that from the Illinois General Assembly, who made the law. The officers did not follow these guidelines. Clearly, they did not wear gloves. It's on the tape. We have the footage. Here's the police chief. His name is Keith Cross. What does Chief Cross have to say? You see, Chief Cross emailed Mr. Cooper after Mr. Cooper complained and sent him the video. Here's what the chief said in the email. You and I have had several conversations in the past about some of these interactions. And as I've stated in the past, sometimes things aren't always what they appear to be. I understand that you have a certain view of the Aurora Police Department, and you are entitled to that opinion. I doubt that there is anything I could say that would change that opinion. It goes on to say, I don't know anything about the people that the gang unit was dealing with or the reason they were interacting with them. What I do know is that they are called over there to investigate something, or they saw something that looks suspicious to them. They are going to check it out, regardless of what color those individuals are. Tonight, Cooper, the same young man that provided the information to us, will speak before the Aurora City Council. A detective named David Guevara, who the Aurora Police Department referred to us for comment has not responded to us as of yet. Detective, we are waiting on the official response. Now let's highlight some dynamics that are important to this story. Chief, you know good and damn well what they're doing. The complaints have been coming to that department for years about this kind of activity. It is now exposed your officers were in violation of actual state law. You are the chief law enforcement officer for Aurora. Your cops are on video violating the state statute. What are you going to do? What response will you now have? Will there be some level of appropriateness from your office, given the fact that we now have your cops on record? Now, I guarantee you this, Chief, if you choose to not act, if you choose to not apply a decent policy and get rid of those who are contrary to the law and contrary to the policy, if you don't do it, guess what will happen? More of these videos will surface. More people in Aurora will start recording, and I will report on every single one of your damn officers who are violating citizens in this way. All right, Doctor, what are your thoughts here?
A bunch. I mean, it really goes back to what we saw before. I'd say the two main points that come to my mind first are, it's so ironic, right? We live in this law and order moment where everybody wants like more cops, more cops. But what seems like what's fallen out of that conversation is like, what's a good cop and what's a bad cop? From a medical perspective, you can actually probably kill somebody with an invasive search like that if you're not doing it the right way.
Wow.
You know, the mucosa is very sensitive. If it's not done with sterile technique, you can introduce an infection pretty easily, and particularly in that setting. So I just think the chief's points are kind of beside the point. I mean, of course, people want to feel safe, and of course, they want, to do the right thing there. But that's different from doing like an in the field unprotected body cavity search that can be, very, very costly to somebody's health or their life. And so again, I just think that there are two different parts of this, and the chief seems like he only paid attention to one part. And then the other part is the man who was saying, you're a black cop, why are you doing this? And we can talk about it on a later show, but when I was doing my book, The Protest Psychosis, about the overdiagnosis of schizophrenia in black men, I started off thinking it was just white racist doctors that were doing the overdiagnosis. And what I found in my research is that black doctors were just as likely to overdose schizophrenia, because it was being a doctor. Actually, that was the risk factor, being part of the institution, being part of the authority figure, and using the tools of the system, psych drugs, diagnoses. That was the risk factor. The race of the person didn't really matter. And so really, I think that's important to keep in mind, that just because somebody's a certain identity, it doesn't mean they're going to act in a particular way. It's really their relationship to authority.
Fascinating stuff, Doc. Thank you for that insight.
Yes.
And the fact that Michael Parrish is now a commander in the Detroit Police Department, we know from our own experiences, people that we know in the community, how the Detroit police have been. I covered police killings for many years in Detroit when I began working with the Detroit Coalition Against Police Brutality, and then went to work for the Michigan Citizen for 10 years. And it has not stopped. Under James Craig, the mainstream media tends to look at him as a good alternative to James Craig, and under James White, who's the current police chief, but they whitewash most of what goes on in the community. And the fact that there was all sorts of publicity, not just in the Michigan Citizen, Channel 2, other news media covered that case of the Booty Boys. All sorts, their names were out there all over the place. They were sued. How the hell does the Detroit Police Department go ahead and promote one of those rapist white cops to commander? It's just, now that reflects on the entire department and what else they're doing. There's nothing that can be said to justify that reflects a culture in the entire police department. I recall one time when I was writing those stories for the Michigan Citizen, I ran into Parrish I was researching a case in 36th District Court, and he was just bragging basically that he was going to get away with it. And he did. Kwame Kilpatrick's office. I called that office and they said, well, he's waiting to see what the federal government says about it. And the federal government never did a thing. The media went on this campaign against the people that had brought the charges.
They were saying they was trying to get rid of the police or get them out of their neighborhood. And so I guess they were making up all these charges against them. Meanwhile, they paid like $350,000 in law, to different people.
Yeah, the media had a fit about that because they said that was Byron Ogletree and another guy that attorney Daniel Reed had managed to get settlements for with the city. There's a procedure you can go through in the city where you don't have to go through court. You can reach a settlement inside of their internal procedures, and that's what he did, which it turns out was a good thing because after that the media just went crazy and vilified the people that were reporting this. And the one trial that I remember that they went to, I think it was from that trial that picture is, the jury acquitted him.
Mm-hmm. I have another video because this is a thing. Like people, this is.
He pulled out my pants, touched my testicles. They like eased down and they put their hands right between my butt. He pulled my drawers down and dug in my rectum.
The alleged victims keep coming forward. 8 Milwaukee police officers are under internal investigation, accused of performing illegal strip searches, including cavity searches on the streets. Were they wearing any gloves?
No, I didn't see not one. There was no gloves.
Kevin Freeman Jr. claims back in December he and some friends were violated during a traffic stop.
When they searched me, they like eased down and they put their hands right between my butt. And I try to reach back and when I try to reach back and try to stop them, they just got to slam me.
Yeah. So, I mean, isn't that, again, we're talking about the culture of, policing. Like, this is a thing that they are literally doing to break people down.
Mm-hmm. In fact, when I interviewed people on the Southwest side, a lot of the young people I talked to, the young men, they didn't realize it was illegal. They thought it was just something that the police could do because it was so prevalent. And, that's partly the fault of the educational system for they got rid of the Detroit public schools, essentially, in the city of Detroit. There's no decent education available at the public school level, at the grade school and high school levels anymore. And I was just astounded that people really thought that. And other people apparently, too, out there think, well, there must be a reason why they would do that. Like the doctor said from Aurora, Illinois, there must be a reason why they would do that. Wait a minute, this is in public, in front. I mean, these people, the young men in Detroit, there was a garage there on Annabelle and Schaefer, where one of the people, the owner of the garage, sponsored the rally that was held for them. And he said this was happening right in front of his garage on a main street all the time, that this was something that was going on. And for that kind of image of what justice and policing is like in our community to be portrayed, that it does go back to the slavery days when you come down to it. Yeah. It hasn't, the police haven't advanced from that. And the criminal justice system hasn't advanced either, because it's still legal under the 13th Amendment to keep people as slaves if they've been convicted of a crime and are incarcerated. That's still legal in the U.S. Constitution.
Go ahead, Kevin.
What you're saying is true and exact, and we had just did something about that under the Grow File with James Jones. We have, it's called a Day of Truth tour, and on that tour is dealing with abolishing the 13th, that section of the 13th Amendment, because you got to remember when that 13th Amendment was passed, that was like the compromise, that small section. And so they was like, where can we get this labor? If we release all these slaves, it's gonna be, we ain't gonna have nobody to work. So this when they came up with all these nonsense vagrancy laws, these nonsense trespassing laws, and they start who they affected. Black men. You spit on the ground, we'll lock you up for a couple of years. You look at a white woman, we'll lock you up for 5 years. Whistle at her, 10 years. Jaywalking across the street, we'll lock you up for a couple of more years. And they give you like a 1 to life sentence for little things. So what they started doing was and they was locking people up at 10, 13, and 14 years old. So this started under that thing called the Black Code. Then as time went on, it advanced later on into Jim Crow. Lady by the name of Michelle Alexander, she did an outstanding book talking about the new Jim Crow regarding the mandatory minimums. And what this did was, y'all got to remember, like I said, the worst president in my lifetime was President Bill Clinton. What he did was they started Unicorn. So when they had Unicorn, they giving everybody, they making the pennies to the dollars. They paying the guys doing the work, but you're doing the work. So they put Unicorn in the stock market. It's $1 trillion industry on the stock market. They're making a killing. This is how he pretty much closed the budget and had a surplus. All right, and he just kept on housing more and more black men. Now, my last 5 or 10 years in there, people start calling out them housing a lot of black people in there. So now they started getting the poor white people. So now it's more of a class war now that they're doing. With this, it's like it's us against them, the disenfranchised, and so they start locking up a bunch of them to take some of the heat off them. But it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. Nobody should be oppressed and used and abused for another person capitalist game, whether they black, white, Hispanic, Asian, or what have you. But that's because they poor. It's just wrong. But you're right regarding that 13th Amendment. And when they take that clause up out of there, them business who want to do business in it is going to have to start paying guys minimum wages.
Yeah. There's a movie out right now, and I got flagged yesterday on Facebook for even posting it, but it's called Stamp from the Beginning, and it's on Netflix, so everyone go check it out. But it's talking about what you were talking about, Kevin, the whole black people and this culture of mass incarceration and how they were stamped from the beginning. And even in the beginning, there were white indigenous servants, and then there were slaves, like they were all together. But then they figured out, hey, if they all stand together, they could go against us. So they, gave the white people a little more, they got them out of there and made them a step above, of the slaves. And so that culture of thinking and how from then and on to today, it's just been a rotation and how that has moved up to the thinking is today. And so I'm saying all that to say that this system, how it's made, how the culture, how they figure it's okay to stick their hands down in somebody's butt, that is something that's embedded from history of doing all kinds of things to people, because who's going to stop them? Who you going to call? Who you going to call to tell, because somebody, to say, hey, I need help. This guy is sticking his hand in my butt. There's nobody to call. And so they feel entitled and privileged to treat people that way. And so until that changes, they're gonna still keep doing this. And now one of the booty boys is now a commander. And so these teachings continue. These kind of behaviors are still embedded because nobody stopped the behavior. They just put them to the side and, you know, quiet them down. But meanwhile, they're still rising up. Just like the guy who had 85
accounts.
Yeah,
against him.
Against him, the police officer, he still was getting promoted. You know, even with all these 85 complaints, you know, of people saying he was doing racist things and kept on going, this guy still was getting promoted. So until there's something, or until we come together to, like, we can't come together, we can't do it, to disrupt this culture, they're gonna still be sticking their hands in people's butt. They're still gonna be doing all this crazy stuff. And there's and like you said earlier, Miss Diane, 10,000, maybe approximately, or if not more, people are sitting in the Michigan Department of Correction, men and women innocent for things they didn't do.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. And you know that the sexual assault being correlated with police culture, that is a horrible, it's just a horrible thought. But to know that that is true across the United States, and I can say probably filtering into other areas too. But if I'm just looking at our own, this is a culture. It's a culture. It's a mindset. And then some of us, people of color, have said yes to that also. Could you still hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah,
Like
they're
it's
saying
okay.
yes. They're saying like it's okay. So and it doesn't matter if it's man or woman or child.
Yeah.
But you're saying in this day and age, so, and it just tells me as human beings, are we that far removed from evolving as humans? Where we don't even, I mean, what is that? That is beyond the animal kingdom. I mean, that's it. It really is. It should not mean that you have control over somebody. What they're saying is, oh well, we're breaking the buck. So if you still have that mindset that you're breaking the buck, you still think like that? How is that even a thing? How how is it? When you think of breaking the buck, you think about horses and taming horses. Well, are you screwing a horse to tame them? I hope that's not the case. I hope you're not sticking your hand up a horse's behind.
They'd get
You know,
kicked.
But they,
have to be so ugly.
Right, on this video, they're literally in the public sticking their hands in this man behind.
No glove.
With no glove.
They going hard, so they smelling it and everything. They freaks.
It's just
man.
nasty.
They freaks. Yo, they skull cold. Yo, they freaks. Yo.
Who does that?
Freaks.
Yeah, and the booty boys, they want to be called the booty boys. Like, do they know that people call them that as police officers? They're known as the booty boys, and you're okay with that?
On the Southwest side, that was the name that the people used, the people in the community. They called them the booty boys because that's what they were doing. They didn't care. They knew that they could get away with it in the end, which they did. They were never criminally charged.
A sign that says the booty boys.
They're still working today.
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking.
Because
like,
we don't have a sign up there saying the booty boys.
Listen. First of all, nationwide, in all states, they have something called Rule 50 or something. 50 it's either 50 or 52. And what that is in order for you to get a police record, you have to go to a judge, and a judge have to give you the okay to pull that police background. Attorney Mack, Mack, I know he know about it. So it's not public. It's not public record. So so you have to go through hoops and hurdles and show cause and reasons why you need this to show that this police have a history of doing such and such, such and such. This is the reason why they climb the ladder. I have my age-old saying is there's a full lunar moon over any type of government agency. Because here's why. Because you hear the saying that defecation travels downhill. It's going down. It travels down here. Only in the government, federal or state, does not. Only in the government. This is why it says a full moon does defecation travels uphill. It travels uphill.
Yeah.
It travels uphill to become a congressman, a chairman, a senator, and maybe even the president or something. But
the president.
Only in the government, whether it's federal or state, there's a full lunar moon out every night. Because it don't go downhill, it goes uphill.
Look at Biden right now. He's been okaying the genocide going on in Palestine.
Ain't that something?
The only way Israel has gotten away with it. He could put a stop to it in a minute if he stopped sending aid over there.
You're right. You're right.
Meanwhile, here you got people that are being evicted, mass evictions, especially in our county where we live, and all kinds of things. But you're sending millions and billions.
No, trillions. They don't do billions no more. It's trillions now.
Trillions to somewhere else and
Ukraine. Don't forget about Ukraine.
And Ukraine, yeah, exactly.
Who asked us? Can we send our money to Israel and Ukraine?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Ukraine's been a blot on this country since they started that. Since the whole thing started. And those are neo-Nazis in the government in Ukraine. The media here has just astonished me with the level of lies and deception they put out there. I have to go to newspapers like Russia Today and for the Middle East, Al Jazeera, to find out what's really going on.
Wow. So you guys, again, we bringing you this information because we're trying to educate our community about what's going on. And we were trying to have these conversations to help navigate us for change. We can't, yes, we want you to write an email or send a letter. Yes. But we want you to get more involved in that. We need you to have a conversation with your family. We need to, for you to look up stuff. We need you to have a conversation with your coworkers and, we have to do this amongst ourselves as we, then we can come together. But if we're so disconnected, then we're not having the conversations, and then we're surprised when we hear these stories about, the booty boys or wrongful convictions and all this stuff. And it's not a surprise. It's been happening for over 400 years, for real. So, we're going to start with Miss Diane. What would you like to leave us with tonight?
Well, first of all, I'd like to invite people to come to the hearing on behalf of Darrell Ewing. He has a judge named Kiefer Cox. He's out of the Cox family, Mike Cox and all them on down the line. His father is a judge there. Sean Cox is a federal judge now. And in fact, that's the judge that's hearing the case that Darrell filed about the conditions in the Wayne County Jail. he needs support. Both of them, both Darrell and Derrico, really need to have support in that courtroom for that judge to see that he can't just get away with it. Their families and friends have been coming, but we need to have people in general come out. And that will be next Friday, December 1st at 1 o'clock. It will be all afternoon in the courtroom of Judge Kiefer Cox. Come on and pack the courtroom on their behalf. This has gone on far too long in their situation. They should never have even been retried, and it's got to stop somewhere. So I'm just asking people to do that. That's what I want to leave people with. And you can read about all of this. I've done dozens of stories really on their case in Voice of Detroit. You go to voiceofdetroit.net for that online.
Yes. Reverend Tia.
Okay, I just wanted to
The Voice of Detroit.
say thank
before
you.
get started.
Yes, Voice of Detroit. Donate to the Voice of Detroit. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for being the voice out there for so many. Yeah, Jay, I just want to leave us with an encouraging word that we have the power still, that it still lies within us. And us knowing what is going on out here helps us to come together and to make a difference. And just know that when we talk and have these conversations, look, take our time and know what's going on in other countries, okay? Know what is happening. Understand that sometimes we can live in a space where we don't see everything. And people do take a stand. They do take a stand. I was talking to my friend in Dubai, and she said because of our stance in the United States, people are taking a stand and not purchasing from the fast food restaurants in Dubai. Now, the ones that are from America. Okay. Now, that may not seem too big for you, but listen, they're not going around with a sign saying, let's rally together. They took a collective silent stance and decided to, okay, no more money will be spent here. And that's what I'm asking us to do. Yes, we have to shout loud. Yes, we have to come together. But then there's some things you can do individually and say, okay, no more. And who's going to meet us in the courtroom? Diane just put that out there. I know Kevin, Dwayne, Attorney Matt could have needed us there in the courtroom. So if you can't do anything else, go to the courtroom.
Please.
Be
That's
there.
right.
One afternoon.
Be there. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you, Reverend Tia. Dwayne.
I would like to leave the people with the fact that, this is an epidemic. The way that they treat us in this country, it's not getting any better. You got social media, you got, all of these entertainment outlets, and you're seeing Black people prosper playing basketball or football or, entertaining. But for the common folk, it's getting worse and worse and worse. It's not getting no better. And we need overhaul. Reform is not going to be enough. Reform is not going to be enough, and like the Reverend said, the people have the power. And we have to take our power back in every way, and including spending our money. And we need to come like they're doing in Dubai, come together and start making them feel it in their pockets, in their bottom line. Because it's a travesty the way that they treat us. In no other country, if anybody in any other country was treating people like this, America would be going up in there, going to war against that country to overthrow the government.
Right.
Period. Point blank. That's all I got.
Thank you, Dwayne. Kevin.
Great show. Thanks for having me on here. And Dwayne, you're right. But except if they allies, as Reverend T was pointing out, you see, they buddies with Israel, so they can do what they want to do. I mean, so unless they allies, yeah, you're right. They'll be going up in there and trying to straighten things out. But all I can say is, great show. The main thing is for awareness, to get people talking, and God willing, people begin to galvanize and come together and start trying to make a difference and stuff like that. But thank God again for social media and different other things, because now with these phones and how things are, it's highlighted. It's just like the gentleman in 2020 who it happened to him. Now he's recording it, so no one can say these guys aren't doing it. So that's a mercy and a blessing for social media, these phones and these things being pointed out. And again, we gotta watch who we voting for. Yeah, you need to vote, but they're saying if you don't vote, you vote. I'm against that. We need to find these candidates, and we need to push for them who has our agenda, who's out there for us. And if they're not out there for us, and if they're not supporting our agenda, don't vote for them. Just don't vote for them. What's the difference if it's a Democrat or Republican and they doing the same thing? It's a lion. That's there. Then you got the wolf in the sheep's clothing. It's the same thing. And I'm against the lesser of the two evils, or the greater of the greater evil. No, it's all evil. Is just shit evil. It's just evil. Don't vote for none of them jokers. But again, we have to start finding our candidates, backing our candidates. And this means, it's going to require some money. We're going to have to come up with some sort of financial solution so we could begin to start pushing our agenda, just like these other people around this world is pushing their agenda. And they don't push, some of these people don't push their agendas to the highest peaks of Washington. And we can do the same. We can do the same. But that's just my last thoughts. And thank you, everybody. And again, to the viewers, thanks for watching the show. And thank you, J Love, for having me on there.
Thank you, Kevin. Attorney Matt.
Well, one thing I'm going to start doing, J Love, with your permission, in my final comments, I want to bring some public interest and some changes in the law to the panel and the listening audience. And there's two things I want to address. Earlier this week in Arkansas, court there ruled that a citizens group or a citizen cannot sue in terms of a state violating Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, of 1965, So what happened was, if my memory is certain right, I believe it was an NAACP in Arkansas was saying the state was violating that, and the court said, well, no, you don't have standing to do that. It's got to be the government itself. In other words, the Attorney General's office to bring that. Now, that's devastating. You see, because with a change in administration, as the former president, I won't dignify him by saying his name, the former president ordered the Attorney General, his puppets, I might add. Well, one guy used to be his puppet. Now he didn't turn on him, and that puppet and turn around and bite him in his ass. Good. Glad to see it. So excuse me, I'm sorry. So in any event, what I'm saying is, now, unless that ruling is overturned, it's only going to be the federal government that can sue for violating an already weakened Voting Rights Act, by the way. Judge Roberts and them saw to that, an already weakened Voting Rights Act. So elections have consequences, and so I just want us to be ever vigilant to value that vote, value that vote. And what Brother Haynes said and what y'all have said, it's not a matter about just sitting out. If somebody ain't right, don't support them. Do not support them, and let your voices be known. So anyway, J Love, with your permission, that's things like that is what I intend to do in my last closing comments from here on out.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Attorney Mack.
Okay. Right.
So again, thank you guys for coming in, and let's not forget Crystal. While we're going through having a holiday, let's not forget Crystal and all the other women who are in the Women's Huron Valley Correctional Facility that's sick or suffering from the toxic mold that's in there that they're denying that's making people sick. Crystal was, as you can see, with Crystal before she became sick, and now where she is, the paralysis in her face. She's using a walker. Her hearing she's losing her hearing. This is because of that mold. And if you want to hear more about Crystal, I have posts on my Facebook page. Just go to my page, J Love. You'll see more things about Crystal. And to bring awareness, contact the governor. I have the information here. Send her a letter, Governor Whitmore, Post Box 30013, Lansing, Michigan, 48909. Or you can call or leave a phone message at area code 517-335-7858 about what's going on with Crystal and all the other women that's in there suffering from that mold that they know that's in there. So thank you guys. Have a great rest of the holiday, and we'll see you next Friday.
Thank you.
Turning them. Oh, Miss Diane, she's going to be with us once a month, so we can talk about more of these stories. So thank you, Miss Diane, and thank you, Kevin. And I'll see you guys next Friday. Turning a moment into a movement.
Be blessed.